2, 1.
Hey everybody, glad you've stopped by. Good to see some smiling faces here at Team West Point Thoroughbreds. Jason, Tommy, and Joe. Happy New Year, guys. Joe, I figured I'd start with you. We do a little round robin as we get things underway. What's been going on in good old Brooklyn, my friend? I hope you've got a warm winter jacket.
I do. Yeah, no, it was a negative wind chill this morning. That's one of the benefits of working from home. Meg trudged off to the hospital at like 6:30. I'm like, couldn't be me. Yeah, it's
I
rough.
love you, but I love you. Yeah.
I love you. Good luck.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, it's been pretty chilly, but battling. It's like one of her toys she's playing with. But yes, very cute, but a handful.
I love her. Absolutely love her. I'm glad everybody's well in the Bianca household. And I mean, as far as you, Tommy, the cat okay in Kentucky?
Yeah, yeah, he's just hanging around, staying warm inside. It's been abnormally cold, really all across the country. I mean, heck, I saw Florida was getting snow today, which is unbelievable. Of course, not down in your neck of the woods. That's you're too
It
far
feels like it
south.
though. And again, I'm sure there'll be some eye rolls of people in way colder, frigid climes than we are. But yeah, I was texting with the great Tom Bellhouse yesterday, and he was like, "They're never gonna let me back down in the state." I'm like, "Yeah, you brought like the Saratoga weather." 50, high 40s for down here is pretty darn cold. But forecast for Saturday, and that's the reason for our little gathering today. It's Pegasus Day at Gulfstream Park. I mean, this is hands down, and it's been that way really since the first edition back in 2017 with Arrogate and California Chrome. This is like the first quote unquote huge day of racing for the new year. And wouldn't you know it, West Point coming off a 2024 season where we won 26 stakes races, and it was a record-setting season in a number of metrics. We've got two horses, Joe, locked and loaded for the turf race, man, with Battle of Normandy and Integration and different running styles. They're two different horses, of course, with the same trainer. I like our chances. I think both of them are going to run giant.
Yeah, I do too. And I like what you said is key. I think two different styles, because Battle of Normandy is going to be a little bit more forwardly placed. Integration isn't slow early, but I think he prefers to sit back and make one run. Especially with Jose Ortiz aboard, he's an aggressive rider. I think Battle might get first run on the rest of the closers. So, I do like both of our shots just from a handicapping standpoint. I think Battle is going to be the value of the race.
Yeah, I was a little, and again, it's a big field. I was a little surprised and not an easy race, minus maybe Nation's Pride and Integration in terms of the first two choices. Not an easy race to do a morning line for. 20 seemed a touch high on Battle of Normandy. Yeah. I was like, am I a little biased? But I mean, the way he's trended up, his speed figures, he's got speed. We'll talk about him in a sec, but yeah, I don't know. 20 seems a little too strong. I'll tell you what, I would have loved 20 to 1 on Reagan's wit, guys, a couple days ago on Inauguration Day, Martin Luther King Day on Monday. Quick trip back, Tommy. This is the replay. He's just about with that white face about to angle outside, and he was monstrous.
Just just fantastic. Here, I thought at this point I knew we were the winner. I didn't think going past the 16th bowl year he'd do it by I think it was 8 lengths, but for him to run as well as he did on debut at Ellis, then have that long of a break, and then to come back and win like this, just really was really satisfying, and just to see. Him really develop. A lot of people will get impatient with horses, and I think West Point, all of our trainers too, are really good about letting the horses, if they need time, they get that time. And when horses get that time, this is what you see from them on the racetrack. It's just what is just fantastic trip for him, and just blowing by these horses like they're not even moving. So it's really happy to see him put in this effort, and just really excited for the year ahead of him. If he can repeat this effort, I think we're going to have a lot of fun with him this year.
Joe, this is not the norm, and well said, Tommy. You just And the race came up fast, by the way, on Bayer, on Ragozin. Joe, you don't see horse. I mean, look at this gallop out. You don't
Oh,
see turf races normally end like this with one horse just in another county. It's not like the dirt.
Yeah, no, I mean, he got a decent setup. Like there was a pretty quick pace, but yeah, like he was in a race of his own in the last eighth of a mile. And like you're saying, you don't see horses win by 8 lengths. I saw you brought it up in the group text. The race that it reminded me of was Northern Invader when he broke his maiden by
Hmm.
9 lengths at Belmont. This was a little bit more eye-catching just because he came from so far back. And just to make up as much ground as he did, he was a little bit green early in the stretch, and then once he leveled off, just looked like a rocket ship right here. And yeah, like Tommy said, he had that little freak accident on the van ride down to Horseshoe Indies, so it was disappointing we didn't get to see him in the fall. But man, he looks like he was worth the wait, and he will be the rest of the year.
Yeah, he looks like a nice one, and I mean, for Cherie, it just feels like it gets better and better as she comes off for her a career best 2024, won her first Breeders' Cup race with More Than Looks, and yeah, David and Gordo did a real nice job picking out that Colt by Authentic for us for not a lot of money back in the fall of 2023. So we'll cover couple of different racetracks here. And in terms of like what's going on with West Point, we have some other starters around the country, but Gulfstream and Oaklawn with Sandman going in the Southwest, that'll be kind of the focal point here. Joe, off the bat, I mean, rise and shine. I'm going to be getting a GP pretty early on Saturday with that 11 a.m. Eastern post time. It'll be a long day, but it'll be a great day. And maybe I haven't seen a morning line here, but I was going to say maybe a live long shot. At least we hope that's the case with Peak Performer, who, from my lips, I know Shug, Anthony Hamilton, the Shug team up at Payson, they have loved the way this horse has galloped on the turf up at Payson. So I'm anxious to see him on the grass early Saturday.
That's great to hear. And obviously the main thing with him, I think turf or dirt, is stretching him out to 2 turns. He's like a big, long striding horse, and I know they've been very high on him for a while. So it was a little bit disappointing in his debut, but I think he was just a little bit immature. And I think the time since then and then the stretch out to 2 turns will do him good. And it's the kind of race that like this is a guessing game. Like there are
Yep.
not a ton of really established turf form on paper. There's a couple firsters who may be live, but yeah, this is a race for. I like our chances. If he can get to the turf, stretching out 2 turns. But just from a handicapping standpoint, this is a race you want to watch the board, man, because there's a lot of unknowns.
There are a lot of unknowns, and if you're playing early pick fives, maybe, just maybe, you can lean a little bit in the second half of the early double. A little birdie has told me, and I've seen some workout videos, multiple breezes for the five disruptor, who, has, I think, not to talk out of school, has given like the same kind of vibes that Mind Frame was giving going into Florida Derby Day last year. So he's probably not going to be a price. I'm sure the whole world's going to know like he's training like a real good one. But again, for those that like the multi-race wagers, you might be able to lean heavily on Disruptor in the second race. He seems like he's locked and loaded, and I'm happy, Tommy. I mean, speaking of trainer Todd Pletcher, the big into mischief known to me a colt that we own in partnership with Mike Rapoli, that horse shipped down to Palm Beach Downs 2.5 weeks ago, give or take, and has already had a workout. So I told Todd I expect the same thing from him that Mindframe did last Florida Derby Day when we get that big guy rolling.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously with that pedigree with Pierces and Mentee in there as well, maybe we can steal a little bit of talent from those guys. That'd be great. And just it was really nice to see him shipped down there, and hopefully we can get him rolling here very shortly.
He's gorgeous, by the way. He's amazing to look at. Like when we were down in Ocala, like we'll see how good he ends up being. But I don't know, Jay. I think it might be in the stars for him to be a nice one with all he went through, and he was kind of on death's door at a certain point, and for him to be back and rolling now, like I don't know, it seems like he might be destined to be really nice.
Yeah, it does have, Joe, a storybook kind of vibe so far. I mean, it's been drama and a soap opera times 10 with him getting so ill over the summer and then fighting back from that and came to hand quickly late fall into early winter, and he's now breezing. And again, that family has just been, you've got Cairo Prince in there, Fierceness, Menti, like Tommy mentioned. That family has been superb. So I already was joking around with Mike. I said, I've got my eye. I know you know, here, thankfully, in West Point, we've got a bevy of super nice 3-year-olds. But I'm dreaming Travers is the race I've got my bullseye on for the soon to be named Into Mischief colt out of Nona Me, and along the lines of Todd Pletcher, he's sending out the rail horse in the first Pegasus race on Saturday. It is a marathon card. I mean that has been in vogue for the last 2 decades, give or take, in this game. Stacked day, full of graded stakes races. But it isn't until race 10 where we get to the first Pegasus race, the Filly Mare Turf. And I mean, Joe, for me, did you take the dartboard out and see where the dart lands? I mean, this race looks just insanely competitive, almost so, my friend. And I'm curious to hear who you like. If you ran it a dozen times, maybe you could have 9 or 10 different winners. I think, to me, it's that competitive.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's hard to find someone to settle on. These are the kind of races where I try to figure out what the pace is going to be like. You got a little bit of speed, the Rakia and Pounce and Be Your Best, and then a little bit further to the outside, Ocean Club's got some early foot. Maybe you get a little bit of a pace meltdown, but I kind of think of the speeds, you want the rail horse, the Todd Pletcher horse that you were talking about, and then maybe try to find a fuzzy, a little bit of a price as a closer. Watchtower for Richard Baltas is a little bit interesting to me. Horse ran a really nice race in the autumn miss, closing like a freight train, just to get up despite some traffic on the far turn. And then she stretched out to a mile and a quarter in the American Oaks and just didn't run all that great. They came home really fast. It was 22-3 for the last quarter of a mile. And maybe she just doesn't want to go quite that far. Turning back to a mile, all of her previous races were at a mile or a mile and a 16th. She's a little bit interesting to me. And that barn can really strike at a price when they ship out of town.
Yeah, we've got some West Coast flavor and then some with guys that maybe necessarily don't, and it's a long ship, mind you, a very long journey. But there's some guys that don't come to Gulfstream all that often, much like Richard Baltas. So some good points there, Joe. Tommy, I mean, the more I looked at the race, I was gonna take the easy way out, just taking Rakia from the rail, thinking, you know what? She's quality. She's first time Todd. She looked good Breeders' Cup weekend, and perhaps she is just simply the speed of the speed with the Tory from the rail. So she was kind of where I wound up, but a trip is going to be key. I mean, what's cooking in your brain regarding the Philly Mare Turf?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys with the rail. I think that's the speed. That's especially with how Gulfstream sometimes tends to play. If that turf course is going to be a little bit quicker, I think looking towards some of those speed horses make a lot of sense. But a horse that always seems to draw my eye in spots like this is Fluffy Socks. I know she didn't put in an absolutely great effort last out in the Golden, but she had to ship all the way out west for that, and now she's back home on the East Coast, and she to me, she ran here last year, ran fourth. Just is a horse I think if she can get a nice trip, and there's a couple that go up front and pick up the pace a little bit, she's a horse that I'm going to have my eye on and more than likely use in a couple wagers to see if she can pick up any of the pieces coming home late.
I, on some level, think, and it's not by a wide margin or stroke. I kind of looked at her like the class of the field in a way, just because she probably race after race, horse for horse, has faced the toughest competition consistently for Chad. So yeah, we'll see how she does with Louis Saez aboard, but a real wide open rendition of the Philly Mare Turf, and a good segue into, of course, the colt version of this race for the males and the first grade one of the winter. Only 3 grade 1s at Gulfstream, actually. You've got the turf, the Pegasus Turf, of course, the dirt race, and the Florida Derby. So this will lead that grade 1 trio. And although Nation's Pride is a legit favorite, and we can talk about him and need to talk about him. And what do you do with a very rare, talk about Richard Baltas not really coming to Gulfstream all that often. Charlie Appleby, this is not a time of the year we are accustomed to seeing his horses for the most part. I think, again, as we opened up the show, guys, Joe, in a good spot with integration and Battle of Normandy. And they both battle, especially, but they both strike me as like classic quote unquote Shug McGahee trained archetypes, these two 5-year-olds.
Yeah. And especially Battle with just the way he's gotten steadily better and better from a 3-year-old to a 4-year-old. Now he's 5. For him to win 4 in a row, first of all, to find 4 races in a row to win when the allowance conditions and how hard it is in this country is pretty damn impressive. So that's great finessing of the condition book by Shug. And yeah, he's gotten a little bit better pretty much with every single race. And I think, as you hear Juno in the background, and I think integration, he's pound for pound the most talented horse in the race. I know Nation's Pride is, technically the horse to beat, but he's got one pretty poor race since he beat us in the Arlington Million in August. So we definitely have the recency edge, and he's going to have to come with his top race.
He absolutely is. And I was wondering, Tommy, if this is a case where you don't have you don't have a litany of grade one caliber horses lining up for the Pegasus Turf. I mean, to be fair, this race, as far as the American turf scene, is run at a time of the year when many of our top turf horses are getting a winter vacation and the Europeans are doing the same and they're not going to ship over here. So this race is kind of not an anomaly, but it's kind of on an island. And there's nothing really until Keeneland starts up after this race. So I'm kind of wondering if like Godolphin just said, look, Nation's Pride, his race in Bahrain was atrocious, even though he is a
Hmm.
very accomplished top class horse. Maybe even if we don't think he's like totally at the top of his game, let's just take him over there. We'll be favored and let's get a shot to run it 2-1 for $1 million. So he might be a vulnerable favorite. And if he is, and Integration gets a clean trip and Battle is up on the engine, I see no reason why both of our horses can't finish in front of Nation's Pride.
Yeah, and a point I want to make too is, we West Point, we've done it before. You go back, look at the PPs. Our good friend Ohana Honor was able to get in front of him. The Man of Warrior at second, a couple races back for Nation's Pride. But so it's doable. And I think to your point, with our two-pronged attack with Battle, who I imagine being forwardly placed, and when I looked at the race, I don't think it's completely out of the question to see if Jose will send him try to clear everybody and see if
Can we make
he
the
can get on
lead?
the
Like,
lead.
can
Yeah,
we?
it's
Dude, I think we can make the
I
lead. I
think we can.
really,
And
yes.
I mean, if it say, he makes the lead, clears everybody going in that first turn, what kind of fractions is he going to be able to set? And what's everyone else going to do? Because there really is no true speedball horse in the race. I don't think that's going to gun to the front that everyone's going to say, okay, fine, they're going to go run off and then we'll run them down. But I mean, we've seen it with Battle before. He gets to that lead, he gets in a comfortable rhythm, and he's a pretty dang hard horse to run down. He gets pretty brave up there. So to see if he can get that, I think too, that really helps integration out. See if he's going to be able to settle in a nice spot, get covered up, then work out a trip. Obviously, we know last year he didn't have the world's greatest trip in this race, so I know he's going to be looking for redemption here. But I just really like the two-pronged attack, and we're going to have, one a chance from the front, and I think a chance coming from off it a little bit. So that helps our hopes, and I think it'd be really neat too if somehow we can get Battle turning for home by himself, and then we see integration angling
Oh
outside, and he's
man.
and everyone else is spinning their wheels, and we have integration flying down the middle of the track, Battle at the rail trying to hold on, and they come together for a photo 1-2 in the West Point Soaps. I think that'd be a really neat to see, just go 1-2 in a race like this, especially after last year. But I really like our chances, and you mentioned earlier 20-1. I mean, that's, I don't know if disrespectful is the right word, but for a horse that went 4 for 4 on the turf last year, has consistently gotten better. You can just see what he did last year. So he beat some really nice horses. Just really no respect, but this is a really good test and a litmus test, I think, for Battle, to kind of see where he stands heading into his 5-year-old year.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. I mean, what'd you think, Joe? Here and Tommy kind of line that up. Like battle makes the lead, or maybe even if he doesn't make the lead, he gets that sort of first over trip that he's pulled in his last couple of races, where he's kind of just been tracking outside. He spurts, and we know he's tough. I mean, he's got moxie. He's a fighter. I mean, this is a horse you want with you in the trenches. I mean, he's that tough. Turns for home and now we're at the eighth pole, and then you've got integration. out in the clear with a clear shot. I think collectively, like the three of us, I mean, our heads might explode if that's what happens. Come crunch time there, Joe.
I was like, yeah, you guys spying on my dreams? Like that's the exact way that,
Do we
that
all
it
have the
ended
same
up
dream?
in my dream
Mm.
for this race. Like, were you guys there? But no, yeah, and it's a great point too. There really isn't any other confirmed speed, and I love that he's drawn outside too. So if someone does unexpectedly try to go to his inside, no problem. He can just sit right off their flank and make the first run. But yeah, I mean. To me, the only other horse in the race that I think is a little bit interesting is the Mark Glatt horse shipping in, just because he's moving in the right direction. Like you see that arrow in Jason's PPs there, and he's a very dangerous trainer. He's hitting like 30 something% out at Santa Anita. I love Luis Saez riding on that turf course. He's the only other horse that like kind of interests me. Otherwise, I think it's Us Two and Nation's Pride. And I agree with the morning line thing. Like there's zero chance he's going to be 20-1, if for no other reason than the way the West Point partners bet. Like he'll be 8-10-1, I think, max. And I do think also we're not going to be the only ones who see that, hey, there really isn't a bunch of speed signed on.
Yeah, he could be the one that just takes up the point and he's looking for five straight. So good luck to both our horses. It's gonna be a fun day. Got a big group of partners, as you would imagine, coming in for integration and Battle of Normandy. And yeah, you've heard it here, folks. We like our chances in the $1 million turf race. Wrapping things up with race 13. What time we got? 5:40 Eastern PM will be the grade one Pegasus dirt race for 3 million bucks. You don't have a gun runner or an Arrogate or a California Chrome or a City of Light. What you do have, though, is a pretty nice horse in Lock, who my hang up with him off the bat, Joe, and I have no issue with him as the horse to beat. He's very talented, and you would think might even run better than he did in the Cigar Mile, third start back. That post, it's so brutal. They have such a short run into that first turn from out there.
Yeah, no, that's very difficult. And you think he's the kind of horse who can drop back and make one run, but then you got to go wide around the second turn, most likely too. To me, this race is Saudi Crown's or a race to lose. I just think he got back to his top form last time in the fairgrounds race, and similar to the turf race, I just don't see a ton of speed. I mean, Mixto has some foot on the rail. New Grange has got some early speed, but otherwise, like I'm going through the race and I'm like, who can really run with Saudi Crown early? And I think Tommy's a fan of his as well. I think he just pops out to the front and never stops. I'm curious what price he'll end up being, how much money he takes versus Locked and White Barrio, but I don't know. To me, this is his day to shine.
And Tommy, are you because I'm a White Barrio guy, just with his two good races for Safi back on his home track. I think Saudi Crown runs big. Who's your top pick here? Who do you like?
You can go chips in as I did Breeders' Cup, and it came to bite me in the butt. But I'm going to go all in on Saudi Crown. Like Joe said, I just think he really bounced back in the tenacious, back on form, and I just think there's not a lot of horses that are going to be able to go with him if he's able to have his way up front, and if he does turn it for home, I think he's long gone. But again, it's racing. You got to run the race because you never know. But I like Saudi Crown. Mystic Dan was interesting just because ever since that, since his Preakness, he just hasn't looked the same. Obviously, him showing back up in the Malibu, sprinting, I don't think that was his game plan. And a lot of people were speculating, McPeak was just trying to find a spot to bring him back in a little bit shorter. But I think there were probably a lot of other spots you could have brought him back, cut back, and not run in the Malibu. Um, but it's interesting to see, he's kept on the tradition of Derby horses not winning a race after the Derby. And to be frank, I think that'll continue with Mystic Dan. I don't see him being the same horse he was. So I'll be interested to see where he stands on the board. Is he going to take money because people see, oh, this is the Derby winner from last year. I got to bet him. Or are they just going to, or if he's going to sit a little bit chillier. And usually when McPeak gets chilly on the board, that's when sometimes his horses you see him fire and blow up the tote board. So he's going to be one I'm going to watch on the board. I don't think I'm going to play him a whole lot. But then all the way to the outside, the horse I think that's very interesting is Power Squeeze. And out of nowhere, they throw the filly in this race. And she really, I thought her Alabama was just awesome. She ran a great race. Didn't fire in the cotillion. And then, that Rampart, I thought she was the class of that race, and she was not able to get her nose down there. But again, I just kind of think she brings a different aspect to this race, being the filly. And if she would have drawn better, I would have been a lot more intrigued with her. But breaking all the way out from the 12 hole, then you have locked to the inside, I don't think it's going to do her any favors.
You like Mystic Dan at all, Joe? I will say for a horse and a Derby winner, I think he's very admirable, and I like him. Not much pedigree. Again, didn't cost a gazillion dollars. It was nice seeing somebody else step up and win the Kentucky Derby this year, in Ken McPeek, who, in terms of like dealing with the media, and I remember him going back to like the Belmont with Sarava back in 2002. And I was just, I mean, a kid, basically. I was in my early 20s. He invited me into the barn. He was one of the trainers I covered that week. I wish I had bet a couple of bucks to it on Sarava that year. But I've always liked chatting with Ken McPeek. He's a gregarious, positive guy. Like I've never seen him really, in a bad mood walking by him at the races. So I like Mystic Dan and I like the connections here. And I thought it was sporting. They took a chance in the Malibu. Tommy doesn't like them. I lean more towards no. But where do you stand on the Derby winner?
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, sentimentally, I would love to see him run big because I do think, Ken McPeek is such a sporting guy and really thinks about what's best for the game. I think about, him running Torpedo Anna in the Travers when he would have been 1-9 in the Alabama and her and Fierceness really putting on the race of the year. So it paid off. The only thing, I mean, the thing with Mystic Dan is like, I gotta think that trip out to California it set him back a little bit. Like just having to take that long, long van ride from Fairgrounds all the way to California didn't run that well. Now he's back all the way across the country, running in a $3 million race less than 4 weeks later. I'm glad to see he at least has two bullet works over the track, so maybe he's getting back to form. But he's probably going to get bet a little bit just because of the notoriety being a Derby winner. And I just don't, as much as I'd love to see him bounce back and springboard himself to a really good 4-year-old campaign, I just think there's too much working against him.
All right, fair enough. Good luck to everybody. Great Pegasus Day here on Saturday. And sure enough, I mean, we've got nonstop action between the Pegasus Turf and Sandman running in the Southwest. And we all, in terms of like the Thursday updates, each of us have a trainer or two that we talk to weekly. Joe is the Mark Cassie guy, and you're of course very, very close with DJ Stable and the Greens. So, I'd like to tee it up to you, Joe, regarding Sandman. Off the bat, it's super exciting. I mean, this is what we're in the game for and what you want, especially with a Colt who was purchased for as much as he was last March. For me, this is kind of like the preeminent 3-year-old stake of the season so far. It's a tough field. I mean, where are you looking at Sandman? And I think an entire macro overview of the Southwest.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Cassies love him. They love the way he's come around, and I think it was such a great decision. I think last time to not put him on the shelf because he had a little immaturity when he ran at third in the Street Sense and in the fifth in the Iroquois before that. And I know John and DJ Stable were asking like Mark, hey, do you think he needs some time off? And Mark was like, no, like the only way he's going to become more mature is more seasoning, more racing, and that was proven right at least in the short term with that allowance win at Oaklawn last time. That was by far his best race. He was able to show enough speed from the rail after the horse to his inside scratch. So he was pushed over to the rail and just showed a lot of guts too, running through a pretty narrow opening, turning for home, and then getting outside and kicking away. That was just by far his most professional race. It was obviously his fastest race. He's come back with a couple of really nice works. He did have to miss some time because of the weather out in Oaklawn, but he did get back on the work tab last Friday and looked awesome according to Mark. So I think he's clearly one of the ones to beat. I like that he gets the extra 16th of a mile, but like you said, this is you expect it for $1 million, but this is
Yeah.
like no easy feat. And I think the horse that really is scary is the one to his outside in Patch Adams for Brad Cox, the Into Mischief Cole. Like that maiden win at Churchill is about as impressive as a maiden win can get. Win by 10.5 lengths with a 98 buyer running 120 and 3. Like he's got to stretch out to 2 turns. Maybe he gets fried on the front end a little bit. Like that's my main hope is that there's enough speed that he
Right.
doesn't repeat that effort stretching out to 2 turns, and then maybe it falls into our lap a little bit. But I know Sandman's coming into the race as good as he can be. This is another step. This isn't the end goal, but I expect another step forward from him.
Yeah, I am dying to see not only Sandman, of course, but how good this Patch Adams is and can he successfully stretch out. But yeah, monstrous, two monstrous, one very fast race at Churchill Downs. Then we've got Bob Baffert shipping in Tommy Gaming from the West Coast. I'm going to have this take, and I don't think I'm going to budge from this particular soapbox. I just don't want any of the BC juvenile horses, at least the ones that ran well in the BC Juvie. Horses I liked. I was anti-California and couldn't have been any more wrong. But with him coming back and losing as the big favorite in the Los Al Futurity, I'm not. I'm just not a huge fan of Citizen Bull or Gaming. I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how gaming bounces back after being a beaten favorite and a low self futurity. But in these kind of spots for $1 million, you expect Bob to show up, and when Bob shows up in these big spots, you expect his horses are going to run well. That's just what he's done year in, year out. So being in the one hole will be interesting for him. I broke in one hole last out and didn't really fire, so I'll be interested to see what the game plan with him is. He's shown speed in a lot of his other races, so I would imagine he kind of gets hurried up out of the gate and tries to get clear of some of these horses to his outside that don't have that same amount of speed as him. But I tend to I would tend to disagree in this spot. I just feel like Bob isn't going to send this horse out there to get beat. But again, you got to run the race, and we'll see. And hopefully, we're the ones that hit the wire first with Sandman.
Definitely. And then Joe, we've got Volt hopefully capping a DJ Stable, West Point, Cassie late double there at Oaklawn. We will find out. And I'm curious what you have to say in terms of just how he's coming into the race. But I feel like this was a horse who really tipped his hand last time that he just doesn't want to go long. There's a strong part of me that really believes that race in his second start, that it's not fluky. Like that was a legit race against a very good horse for Chad, who maybe didn't want to go 9 furlongs in the Remsen.
Yeah, no, I think 7 furlongs is probably going to be Volt's best trip. That was my Wandy's girl's best trip for Mike Hushin. She was a really nice stakes winner. I think came from Puerto Rico. It was like a
Yeah.
good acquisition, and
Mhm.
so yeah, I think 1 turn is going to be better for him. This is kind of a pivotal race for him, just because he also is a little immature. So I think if he doesn't run well on Saturday, maybe we give him a little bit of a break to mature. Maybe gelding might be in the cards. He's just a little bit further behind Sandman, and definitely in the mentality department. But I do like that he's getting back to 1 turn, and hopefully he gets a little pace to run at because I don't think he's quite quick enough to be up on the front end. And this is not an easy looking group either.
Mm-mm.
Big money at Oaklawn. So we'll see what we get. I do agree with you. Like that big race is in him somewhere. I don't know if we get it on Saturday, but I think we're going to get some answers as to whether or not we should, back off a little bit or press on with him, right away.
All right, fair enough. Now, as far as we've got our little rundown of races here in terms of what's on tap. Good luck to Sunday Tiff at Fairgrounds. She got her act together in a big way at Fairgrounds last time, and let's see if she can win 2 in a row. No barking's easy. Creed's Vision, our Tom Morley Maryland bred. It sounds like Tommy, that the other Tom Morley, is really happy. Mailman's here. Z, you're killing me. Stop. We're almost done. You can bark to your heart's content in about 3 minutes. But I think Creed's Vision is going to run big, and we'll see what Superpower does. Tommy, second time out. He hopefully runs a little better than
Yeah,
his first start.
I think. Yeah, well, I think with Super Pat in his case, I think go up, and of course he's in great hands to do that with Clement. So looking forward to seeing him take a step forward next out.
Yeah, definitely. All right, good. I am back on camera here, right? Good. Tommy, I guess you'll be watching Pegasus Day from the comfort of your warm apartment in the Ville.
Yes. Keyword warm. Keeping that heat on, trying to stay warm. But yes, we'll be watching, and rooting against all the West Point runners on over the weekend.
Beautiful. And Joe, you'll be clamped down in Brooklyn somewhere, catching
I'll
the
be at the
action.
A for Superpower.
Oh,
So yeah,
superpower, duh, yeah. So, what do you think? Because I mean, his first race didn't get bet, completely outrun. And you saw him just a few days ago. I mean, what's the story with him?
he looks great. Like he's a beautiful looking horse. You know, I talked to Devin, Christoph's assistant, and the word she used, she's like, he's just a boy. Like he's a little bit immature and he's taken a little while to come around. I know they're adamant that he's got talent. So I'm looking for a big step forward from him, and then we can reassess. But this is not, sometimes you can tell when trainers are like, meh, from the jump, and this is not a horse that the Clements have been down on. So we'll see.
Well, good. Maybe a live 20 to 1 shot for us. So yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed. Great catching up with you guys. All right. Always fun talking racing, talking West Point. We thank everybody for tuning in. Good luck to all of our horses throughout the weekend. Have a great Pegasus day, and we'll catch you next time.